Today on the Travel Punks podcast, I talk to Ziad Bader, founder of ZeeOverSeeZ. We talk about when the fuck we'll be able to travel again. We also solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and commiserate on the trials and tribulations of the toughest job in the world, YouTube travel blogger. Check out Ziad's content on Instagram and YouTube at ZeeOverSeeZ. That's ZeeOverSeeZ, or Z for non-Americans. In addition to following our podcast, make sure to follow the Travel Punks YouTube channel, hit the bell icon so you get notifications of our new videos, follow the Travel Punks on Facebook, and on Instagram, follow @CreditCarson and @PaulGreenemeyer. It's just fucking good. Yeah, why bother to be prepared?
Right?
That's not how we do things around here. That would be terrible.
Just dive right into it.
Yeah, that sounds like way too much work to be prepared for these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ziad Bader.
Yes, sir.
Like the Darth of ZeeOverSeeZ. Usually I would ask you if you have any travel planned, but now I feel like the question de rigueur is, have you had any travel canceled?
Sort of.
Or put on hold?
I was planning to kind of go to Mexico for a second time to go discover a couple of places. Mm-hmm. But after the whole pandemic and the whole closures...
Well, I think Mexico's building a wall to keep us out now.
Right.
The Americans among us anyways. But you were just in Mexico City. How long ago?
It was 3 months ago.
Must have been cold.
It wasn't actually. It was like a springtime here, kind of.
Oh, really? It's at a high elevation. I actually thought I got altitude sickness in Mexico City, but I think I was just really dehydrated.
Oh.
Because then it happened again when I got back to Austin. So apparently I was just either drinking not enough water or drinking too much water, or drinking not enough water and then climbing pyramids. But it's just hard to stay hydrated if you're climbing pyramids. It just changes the whole equation.
Yeah, it was hot the day I went to the pyramids. It was really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hot for me, generally speaking. The reason I went was because that was the cheap way for me to see Guns N' Roses when they got back together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then Axl went and broke his foot and had to borrow Dave Grohl's mechanical throne from when Grohl broke his leg. And that ate into the experience a little bit, but nice. For that ticket, I mean, it was kind of the time when I decided to stop seeing legacy musicians and start seeing people who are actually in the prime of their careers. Yeah. Was that show in Mexico City, and it rained.
Nice. I mean, I totally would do that. I would totally travel to save on the
absolutely. I mean, the GA prices in Mexico City were something like $100, which seemed a little expensive, but the only other dates they had were Coachella and then 2 dates in Las Vegas, and the GA tickets were $700.
Wow.
In Vegas. Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah, they knew their reputation had definitely sunk in, or at least their agents knew what their reputation was. They knew how to.
Terrible.
Yeah, what's terrible is when a band's core fan base gets old enough to have jobs, and then they price their fucking tickets accordingly.
Yeah,
it's like, how bad do you want to see Axl and Slash in the same room as each other? Which is a very
follow music. Do not follow. I don't know.
Which is a very old thing for a person to say.
Yeah,
but it's nice to be able to think outside the box in that way. I mean, honestly, it would probably cost just as much to fly to Las Vegas or California as it would to Mexico City. And Mexico City is awesome. I love Mexico City. It's so cool.
It is. That's why I kind of wanted to go again. I was like, it's definitely going to be a destination for me.
You were going to go back to Mexico City? What other parts?
And Hidalgo, like right outside Mexico City. I was invited to somebody's place and to have barbacoa and do local stuff. I was really interested in that.
I love local stuff.
Yeah.
Local stuff is the shit. That's the thing to do. I've been to a couple of like all-inclusive touristy things, in some cases kind of against my will, but I'm pretty much over that. And people who do that are pretty much just, I don't want to shit talk anyone's way of traveling, but I feel like people who do that are pretty much just kind of looking for a way to unwind from a busy work life, which I get it, but you know what? You could do that in a hotel 2 hours away from your house, or 1 hour away from your house, or 10 minutes away from your house, and basically sit by a pool, not have to make your own bed, have room service, have a restaurant on site, maybe a spa treatment. I mean, that's kind of what they're looking for. They're not looking for Mexico unless they're going to like Tulum and getting out to see some Mayan ruins.
Yeah.
Have you been to that part of Mexico?
No, not yet. It was first time going to Mexico, just Mexico City.
Yeah. I went to Cancun once, again, kind of against my will. That was one of the all-inclusive experiences, and I don't want to shit on spring breakers, except, oh wait, I do want to shit on spring breakers. It's just a strip of resorts, and we tried to get into the city, and then we were sorry that we did. Tulum, I think, actually has some local attraction, but I haven't been.
Do you think Cancun is worth visiting to see what it is?
Not really. I think if you want Cancun and you're a serious traveler, and I can't really speak from experience, but I think what you actually want is Tulum, a different part of the Yucatan in Mexico, and there's another town that has some sort of, like, I want to say Santa Rosa, but I'm fucking that up. I know there's something close by that I think is a little bit more local flavor and known for some beautiful beaches, but I don't know firsthand. I've only been to Cancun, Mexico City, Tijuana, because I grew up near the border in San Diego, and Puerto Vallarta, which is kind of a tourist spot, but it's a really cute town. Nice, Puerto Vallarta is adorable. Now I'm curious. Now I want to know what that place is near Cancun.
Luckily, we have the internet.
Right?
We can look shit up.
We don't have a research assistant. I'm not going to wait too long for this, but so now your trip to Mexico is postponed?
For sure. Now it's
Playa del Carmen. I was right that there was some bitch's name in the title.
Yeah.
All right. So so that's postponed. I had a trip to Lisbon postponed that was supposed to happen in April, and I'm almost certainly going to have to postpone a trip I had planned to Africa in June. So like next month. Lisbon last month, Africa next month. All 5 viewers of this podcast are probably going to be tired of me bitching about those trips being canceled by now. But in the case of the Congo, it was made clear to me that the borders were closed by my friend who I was going to visit there, that you can't even get in. I don't even think you can get in with a quarantine. And it just begs the question, because I'm just fucking dying to go somewhere. And I wonder, how do you even find out what it takes to get into some of these countries? Have you done any kind of exploration in what it takes to even touch down?
Not really, actually. I haven't gone to that part of the world.
Well, it's a lot of parts of the world. I mean, Europe and Asia get most of the ink. I remember reading just recently that Vienna was going to start offering tests at the airport with viral tests at the airport with a 2 to 3 hour turnaround, but they're $200 or something like that. So they're thinking that's going to be some sort of barrier to entry. And of course, if you test currently positive, then you're sent to quarantine.
Yeah, right now, kind of my plan was kind of to just focus locally in the U.S.
Yeah,
like when it kind of gets hot here in Austin, go up north.
Yeah.
Somewhere where it's cooler and just see the parts that I haven't seen.
What's on the list in northern U.S.?
Chicago, Boston.
I've never been to Chicago. That's such a glaring omission for someone from the U.S.
Exactly.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, also my friends who are from Chicago are so fucking into Chicago that it's almost like my feelings about Amsterdam, although I've been softening on Amsterdam lately. But everyone is just so excited about it that I have a contrarian impulse to be like, fuck you. It can't be that good, can it? Can it?
I don't know.
They're like, dude, have some Italian beef and something about the White Sox. I don't know. What? I have been to Boston though. Boston's fucking dope. It's so nice.
Yeah, I figure like my friend moved there, and he keeps talking about how it's great for my taste, because I like historical stuff. There's a lot of that over there, and there's Harvard and all Massachusetts. And
I don't know how much stuff is going to be open. Probably not much, But when I talk about wanting to go to some European cities, and they're like, "Why would you want to do that? There's nothing's going to be open." I'm like, "That's fucking true here."
Yeah.
Like what is different?
Yeah. So I guess the only thing is left is to do stuff that's open, which is nature.
Yeah.
Just go to whatever park is open, whatever parts of the world that has like different stuff to see. I don't know.
There's so much beautiful shit to explore in Boston. You know what town is gorgeous? Is Salem. Salem is so fucking charming. I went there with a girlfriend a couple of years ago, and we were like looking at real estate listings. I was like, "Can we move here?" It was just over the top. And of course, Salem is known for the famous fucked up witch trial that happened there in the 1600s. And they make a lot of bones out of that. They have like museums and people dressed as witches taking you around the town when those things are open. But it's kind of silly, except it isn't. And it didn't actually happen there. There's like incorporated Salem town, which is still there. And then Salem Village, where the actual bullshit happened, is a good ways out of town. But they're trading on the name, and it's a beautiful fucking harbor town with some cool ships and historic houses to see. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I love Salem as a destination for coastal Massachusetts. Yeah, there's some cool shit in the United States. I just don't give a fuck.
See some other places.
No, I'm just being difficult. And one of the things that strikes me is when we talk about a 14-day quarantine that some of these countries are imposing, I'm less concerned about that than what I hear. I watched a little CNN travel report, and they're garbage mostly, but they're clickbait. And so I clicked on one of them. I was like, what it's like to travel in Europe right now. I'm like, what is it like to travel in Europe right now? I was just thinking that. You know, they have that headline writer who lives inside my fucking brain.
Yeah.
And the one thing that kind of disturbed me was might not have been in the airports, it might have been in the train stations, but officials asking you if you had a reason to be traveling.
Yeah, I like traveling
because I want to.
Why do you buy shit?
Yeah,
this is my shit that I buy.
Yeah, I don't mind. Honestly, I mind being quarantined less than I mind being asked questions
right
by people in uniforms. That doesn't make me a happy camper, or having to justify what I'm doing really to anyone. I really don't like explaining myself. I like talking about myself, but I don't like explaining myself.
Yeah.
So when I hear about like people be like, yeah, you can't go to that country. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Well, there's a 14-day quarantine and you're not going to do that. Speak for your fucking self. I'll be the judge of that. And I'm like, well, is it in a hotel? Is it in an Airbnb? Is it in a hospital? Is there Wi-Fi? Is there room service? What kind of quarantine are we talking about? This sounds like it could be kind of nice. And I mean, I'm fortunate enough to work from home, so there's a lot of flexibility that I could build into that if I were to do it. So it's really in the forefront of my mind that I might try to do some quarantine travel if I can thread the needle and just to fucking do it, just to, you know, live life. Don't stay safe.
Yeah.
I'm being difficult.
Yeah, I mean, be cautious. Just don't be too crazy about it. Like, it is out there.
No.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
Like there's some medium that you have to go with. Like,
I think so.
It's not about, oh my God, everything is scary. I'm not gonna move. I'm just gonna sit at home and sulk. And
that's what the U.S. is doing, though, in large numbers. I mean, I was talking to my Australian friend the other day, and the question he asked me was so interesting, which was, "What's the fear level like in the United States right now?" And my honest answer was, it feels kind of high.
I don't think so, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, because usually in my head, like normal Americans, like, oh my God, everything is scary. Let's go to the ER. Let's take a medication for this. Let's do this. Let's do that. But a lot of people are just ignoring it, and especially the younger folks, because they like, how everybody knows that it's affecting only older people and stuff.
What have you been seeing?
If like it's only affecting the older you are, it's more likely that it's gonna actually like have consequences.
So how have the young Americans that you interact with been interacting with the quarantine. I mean, we're not going to name names or tell on people. In fact, I'm probably just going to look for fucking addresses and event invitations from you if I'm looking for anything. But what have you seen going on?
I mean, people are kind of cautious, but not necessarily. They're trying to be, I guess, socially aware,
but they're getting together in parks, getting together in houses.
Yeah, people. Yeah, like I have a lot of friends that do anything and everything, and they don't care and do not believe that it's an actual threat. But
I mean, the risk factor is pretty low for people who are young and who have less. Who don't have like an autoimmune disorder or a heart condition or something like that. Am I reading that right? Is that your reading?
Yeah, and which is funny actually. There was someone I know in a traveling group. She's like, "Oh my God, it's gonna affect everyone!" And I was like, "And, and, what's your point?" She's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "It only affects people with like health issues who do not have good immune system." She's like, "I don't have a good immune system." I'm like, "Well, sorry." And then the other day she was hanging out with people at Franklin's trying to get barbecue because it's so
God.
famous and so great. And in my head, I'm like, "Can I say whatever I want?" Yeah, you fat bitch. Like, you just want to shove your mouth with food, and oh my God, I'm gonna get sick, but I'm gonna keep shoving my food. I'm gonna keep.
Yeah, there's a real, and I mean, I hate to yell about virtue signaling, but there's a real sense of like, you need to act responsibly, but not my thing. You know, there's people. I feel like there's people who are, you know. There's different ranges of the spectrum, like that guy who worked for the British think tank or university that initially disseminated the now discredited figures that that there would be like 2 million deaths in the United States and 500,000 deaths in the UK, and was an early and loud proponent of lockdowns and social distancing. He was just recently, I think, fired for being discovered paying visits to his married mistress. So that was a case of do as I say, don't do as I do. And on the other end of the spectrum, you see people being like, I need everyone to be careful around me because I'm elderly, but then they're hanging out with their children and grandchildren. And you're like, what about that?
Yeah,
well, right. That's good for my soul. You know what? It's all good for our fucking soul. You know, we got lives to live, and this is fine for a couple of weeks. Maybe you disagree. Maybe it's not fine for a couple of weeks, but it's certainly not fine for a couple of months, especially when you realize that there's just no scenario under which there will never be another case of COVID-19 in your city. And the question then becomes, when do you start living your life?
Yeah, true. I mean, I've seen people like my family, older people who do not interact with their family, do not interact with their grandkids, which kind of makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. And for example,
well, it's sad. But
I mean, yeah, it is sad. Like back home, so I'm a Palestinian Jordanian. So back home to me is mainly Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So in Jordan, they were doing great. Like in terms of a country, it's not the best, and I'm not a big fan of it. But
you mean politically or
coronavirus? They were taking care of that, like they were handling the situation real well.
What were they doing?
I have no idea, like just curfews and like systematic closures, and so you don't have to pay electricity, you don't have like some taxation waiving, or like they did some procedures that were really nice, and whoever flew in at that certain point, they put them all in 5 stars in the Dead Sea, 5-star hotels in the Dead Sea, fully covered with everything, just quarantined by themselves. Closure of all borders.
They still got that deal going?
Now it's changed.
God damn it.
Yeah, you have it was the first couple of weeks when the whole thing started, but now it's like you pay less for hotels if you don't have a lot of money. They made some sort of barracks like you stay in and whatever for also cheaper. But yeah, I mean it's a what's the word? It's a poor government. They cannot actually afford that for a long term.
Really?
And they did some great stuff. And after 11 days of not a single case, there's one truck driver who got into the country, and they're supposed to test and then go quarantine themselves until the test results and stuff. who decided to have a feast. And of course, now he spread it to like 30 people, and the ship back was like starting over.
Well, with that few number of cases, isn't it possible to contact trace?
It is so when it first started, it was funny. Like the first case in Jordan was a friend of mine who I went to school with. He was in Italy, and he came back, and everything was fine. Then there then there was someone who was in Spain and came back home and went to another like big town outside the capital, and went to a wedding and spread it there. And it's a family and it's more tribal, so everybody's trying to hide who was there, and so it took them forever to find out who was actually there.
Yeah, I guess contact tracing only works if people will answer questions honestly to the authorities, which is not always a given. It's certainly not a given in the United States. No one wants to talk to the police in the United States.
Pretty much.
Just because they can or they think they can. But in parts of Europe, it's a different story.